parang flea market nila.
So an actor too.
Right?
Oh.
Hi there. You look familiar. Guys, sit down. Nakapindot ba? Nakapindot? Talaga nakapindot?
How could natural wonder be partially?
Yun ang magandang ba? Yun ang magandang ba? Yung ba ang St. Paul's Cathedral? Yung ba St. Paul's Cathedral? That's where Princess Diana got married. That particular, that church over there. Magsalita ka naman. Oh, yeah. May video. Oh, ako naman.
Copy ako.
Hi there, in the Philippines. We are here in Calais. And this is where you see the castle in the Dover place in Port Dover. You see me here standing in the logo of Calais.
So there were many troops and civilians here that were evacuated, about 350,000 of them, and they used just about any type of craft they could from the English side to come over and collect people and then evacuate them over. So that happened in 1940, and then in 1944 at Dunkirk and beaches along here, there was a great massive attack, a landing, the D-Day landings that took place. So I've only just fairly recently commemorated the 60th anniversary of those. Lots of anniversaries of freedom days in Europe that are happening all around the place actually this year as well. 1945 is essentially when we think of the end of the war. So you see the signs for Dunkirk, and then we're going to veer inland a little bit. We're going across the Belgian border. You won't see very much evidence of doing that really any longer, because what's happened is, well, in fact, you've been in the European Union already, although many would think you haven't, because Britain is very much on a go slow policy with the European Union, which is why we still have the border posts there, and also why there are no euros, but only British pounds. Because in the proper European Union, which actually not many people are very happy about, I must admit. There's just been a referendum held recently that in France that said no, we really do not want the European Union constitution. European Union is really sort of digging its claws into everything. There's a European Parliament and it's passing various laws which are sometimes overriding the national laws of countries. The idea was that it was going to be a United States of Europe, and so therefore obviously the countries themselves would have their own laws, federal laws, and then over and above those there would be also other laws which are under the European Union. But it's been infringing upon countries. People aren't very happy about it. For example, the European Union is now telling people what's to go in their educational curriculum, for example, how much industry you can have, how many fish you can fish, in which waters you can fish, what sort of sheep you have to have, where they have to sit, for how long. It's getting a little bit ridiculous, so a lot of people are not very happy with it, and also it's caused quite a pressure on a lot of people because things have become more expensive since the euro came in. But seeing as we're in the European Union proper now, it means that law was passed a number of years ago, so a few years now, we no longer have border posts at these between countries. The only time you're going to see a working border post again before we go back to the UK is actually when we go into Switzerland. Switzerland is not in the EU, the European Union. It is a political island in the middle of Europe. And therefore you just see that we're going to be passing through. We're going to be dealing with euros the whole time except for Switzerland, where we're going to be dealing with Swiss francs. And the euro is fairly easy to cope with. You just got to work out your own exchange rates. But the largest euro note that you get is a 500 euro note. Now hopefully you won't get one of those, and if you do, I would try and ask them to exchange it for at least 100 notes, if not 50s. It's unusual that you would have one of those, but still it's the largest note. Then there are 200 notes. They're also not very widely accepted. There are already lots of forgeries around. So the 500s and the 200s, a lot of businesses, particularly smaller businesses, are not particularly keen on taking. Then you have the 100 notes. That's better. People are a little bit better with that. And then after that there are the 50 notes and the 20 notes. I have been to, I think, most places that you come from apart from the Philippines. Certainly I had a lovely time in Canada for about 6 weeks. Therefore I am really aware, honestly, of the standards that you have at home, and also of the standards of the hotels and motels. Sometimes you can get a fantastic motel at a very reasonable price, and it's completely different from here. It just means that, look, I'm not saying anything's terrible, it's just that the standards are completely different. It means that, for example, you don't get things like ironing facilities located in your wardrobe. There aren't laundry facilities downstairs, and also you won't get tea and coffee making facilities in your room. But otherwise you'll get a very nice room. It's got television, satellite television, it's got mini bar there, which means that you have to pay for those things. Sorry, mini bar, not the television, obviously. En-suite bathrooms, and actually a number of the hotels that we're staying at, particularly the first few, are exactly the same as the last two, and I think they're absolutely fine. Really quite nice, certainly compared to years ago when this product, we used to call it low cost, and really it was, well, in fact, who's been to Europe previously? This will be interesting. Okay, who's been on a tour previously? Okay, well, many years ago, Okay. Well, many years ago, we used to have something called a continental breakfast. And a continental breakfast consisted of a bread roll and jam and an orange juice, if it was orange juice, and coffee, horrible coffee. So basically, that was it. And so if you did a 34-day tour of Europe, believe me, you were sick of bread rolls by the end of it. And we even used to have those with the premium product. So it was a standard thing. Things have changed a lot since then. I mean, you'll be very pleasantly surprised at breakfast tomorrow morning, for example, when you've got bacon and eggs and everything else. So that won't happen every single morning, but it will on a number of mornings on this tour. But even when it doesn't, you'll still get far more than the old bread roll. It'll be a buffet. It might not be as extensive in some places, but still you'll have cereals and you have yogurts, and you'll usually have cold slices of cheese and meats and things like that. So it really is much better than it ever used to be. Yes, certainly. So the hotels themselves are absolutely fine. In fact, some of them are really quite delightful, to be honest, but they're not central. So it means that usually there's access, and I would always give you an idea of accessibility, of how you can get the underground or a bus or whatever, or you can walk in some cases. Some of them are a little bit more central. For example,
passing by Belgium. Close mo na. Ano to, Belgium?
right now, folks, in not too long we're actually going to come to the Dutch or Netherlands border, and that's where we're going to make a stop, literally just as soon as we cross into the Netherlands. In fact, we're going to make a stop even before the Welcome to the Netherlands sign actually appears. And that is essentially our lunch stop. So I know it makes it late, but remember we lost an hour today as well, and then of course we picked up all that traffic there. The stop is in euros, and there is, I think, a bankomat there if you need to get some money in euros. Hopefully you got some on board the ferry, and it's like a self-service type of situation. So you walk through and you can just go through and choose what you want, and then you pay the cashier at the end. You take it, put it onto your tray. The toilets have I wouldn't call it an entrance fee, but basically she is there with the amount up ahead of her. These used to be free until not that long ago, and then they decided to change everything around. And I think she actually takes sterling as well. I think she takes pence. Otherwise, I think it's 30 cents or 20th century. In Holland, it was actually the largest of the 11 provinces, and still is. So that's why we. Right, so if you look at the sign just here on the left-hand side, you'll see it's the EU symbol. That is the blue background with 12 stars in a circular pattern. They represent the 12 original members of the EU. And then just inside it said Netherlands. So EU, Netherlands. So we have actually arrived in the Netherlands. Welcome. We're only welcomed really to the Netherlands after we've made this stop. But we're officially in the Netherlands. You won't have any trouble with English, particularly at this stop, because they're so used to English speakers coming through. Right, it's nearly 2:15. 1:15 back in England, but 2:15 here, 2:15 for us. So if you haven't changed your watches, if you haven't moved them forwards, so you should do that now. So 2:15, and we should leave. Well, we will leave. In fact, at 3, because I think you need a little bit of time off the coach now, and then we're going to go straight through to Amsterdam. There will be other coaches behind us. We were probably one of the first ones actually, and there will be other coaches making their way up here as well. So you might as well use the facilities before they all arrive.
Netherlands now, and you will see the place. Look, somebody's looking at me. I can see. Either that, I love you, and also Erai, and Chicky, Trudy, Mia, Tanya, and Miguel, Chit.
Yes. Pasok ka.
Hi there. I just bought these small clocks. Look, several colors. Look, this one is white. Look at this. Hey. Oh, see. Salita ka. Off.
Private, although they are at a huge cost. So very wealthy private residents. And you get to see things that we can't. We just physically can't, because we can't get around in those canals, because some of the canals actually have houses right in them, like in Venice, but in fact most of them are actually built on a small street, but very small and very narrow street by the canal. So it has similarities to Venice in that it was built on, let's say, a water-infested area. They had to build by digging deep these wooden pile foundations, but really had to dig very deep, these wooden pile foundations that would then become the foundations for all of the buildings there. And that's why also they were normally something like larch wood. And when the larch wood was underwater, it was fine. When it came into contact with the air, it meant that it warped and buckled somewhat. And so you will see houses at all sorts of different angles, hickledy-pickledy. And the same sort of thing happens in Venice for exactly the same reasons. And that's why quite often Amsterdam is known as the Venice of the North. So, Amsterdam is not the capital of the country officially. The capital is actually in The Hague or Den Haag. Although Amsterdam is the most populous of the cities with 1 million people, and then also it's the financial hub. But actually until the 60s, and then Queen Juliana came in, and we have had in power now for something like 25 years Queen Beatrice or Beatrix, and they all are descendants of the House of Orange. Right now, whilst we're in Amsterdam, there is an opportunity to then go on this canal cruise. So we're going to go straight into the diamonds, have a look at the diamonds, and then after that we're going to go straight around to where the canal cruise is located. If you don't want to come up until they became a series of horseshoe-shaped canals around the central point, 120 kilometers of them. And then there are a whole number of islands. You can't really walk around each of the islands and say this is an island, this is an island, this is an island. There are probably about 90 of them, and they're crisscrossed by some 1,160 bridges. So space was at a premium, undoubtedly, in days gone by. Space is still at a premium. In fact, if you're staying in Amsterdam, even if we would be having quite small rooms, because inevitably that's the way it is, being a place where it's mainly older buildings and they're being converted. But because of this great tax that they had on the width box, have you seen it all the way along? That's what we call hoisting.
Pinindot mo na ba?
16 former sea locks. These locks around the city date back to the 17th century. Before then, the canals were in direct connection to the Zuider Zee, as a result of which the water was subject to the tides. Cellars and streets were regularly flooded. With the help of the locks, it became possible to control the water level in the canals. Since these days the sea is kept back much further from the city, the locks are normally only used when the canal water has to be cleansed. This flushing out process takes place some 5 times per week.
Actually, prostitution.
Flushing out the canals takes place like this. On both
Dita and Dina, say hi.
Hi.
Hi, Chitty.
Teddy. How do you say your surname?
Emma, that's Amy.
Teddy.
It's your surname.
In contrast to the latter two, which were meant to be residential canals, the Princess Canal, as outer canal, was also a working one, with busy water and land traffic. In general, you will not find beautiful large patrician houses here, such as on the Gentlemen's and Emperor's Canals, but certainly lots of warehouses. At the moment, there are some 2,500 houseboats in Amsterdam. The city government will not allow this number to increase. They are connected to a permanent berth, and new berths are not being issued anymore. This means that when one wants to get a permit for a berth, first, another houseboat has to leave. Most boats have running water and electricity at their disposal. In the 1980s, the city began to convert the houseboats to gas, at least in as much as it was technically possible.
Me too.
A museum and may be visited daily.
It's the one with the green doors, next to the lunch cafe.
In a few moments, you can see on the left-hand side the largest Protestant church in the Netherlands, a 17th century Western church designed by the city's architect of the time, Hendrik de Keyser. On top of the 84-meter high tower, you can see the crown of Emperor Maximilian of Austria. In all probability, Rembrandt, the country's most famous 17th century master painter, is buried in this church. And in 1966, the marriage of Queen Beatrix to Prince Claus van Amsberg took place there.
I like the flowers. Look.
So it's there. So if you could please collect that yourselves as Chris starts unloading the luggage now, and then the other luggage will come up with the porters. If you want it very quickly, you can just come and get it. There's no problem. It's really in the morning when I need to ensure that we have it all and it's checked that I have it all, and then it gets loaded onto the coach. Then I know that we've got it, and that's fine. So at this point, porters, well, porter actually, will bring it up, but it just might take a little while, that's all.
Hi. We are here in, is it Innsbruck? Oh no. But we are here in Amsterdam. Amsterdam.
Ako naman kung... Hindi na. Ah.